Welcome to the About podcast. Here we explore your financial health in simple and easy to understand ways.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the About podcast, where we talk everything financial health. I am Jeremy Scott, one of your hosts here, and of course, joined Roy. Roy, how you doing?
I am superb.
Okay. You got a nice little tan going on.
Thank you.
You're always traveling to exotic places.
That's right.
Yes. I don't know when this episode's going to air, but we are definitely in the summer months.
Yes. Well, and I just came from the Mad Russian golf course.
Yes.
Meeting space, and my goodness, the view.
Oh,
it's gorgeous.
I did a wedding up there 2 weeks ago, and I had been up there in a while.
It's so magnificent.
Gosh, nice and green. You're like, oh, this is why we live in Colorado.
That's right.
All right. Well, we are ably joined by an amazing guest today, and it's always, I think the last episode we did where there was no guest was fine. But I like a guest.
We like guests.
Yes. And today our guest is Erin Crowley of Asset Preservation. She's a vice president and division manager there. And I suppose I have a few assets, and I suppose I would like to know how to preserve them, as most of our audience does. So, Erin, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
And so asset preservation is a qualified intermediary. So that's, this is a whole lot of words. I know, a lot of big words.
You just lost the audience.
I know.
No, we're going to tell them what it means. I'm curious now.
So it's, the assets we're protecting or preserving are your equity whenever you're selling investment properties.
Okay.
So I am the middle person between selling a property, an investment property, saving those tax dollars, and buying another investment property. So that's my one and only function, is to save you taxes so you can reinvest.
That's a good thing.
Keep making money.
Yeah.
Shout out to a previous episode with Christina Coder.
Yeah.
She's the one that introduced me to Erin, and I don't remember what episode she was, but it was about real estate, everybody. So if you want to check that one out as well, thank you, Christina, for the introduction. But so, Erin, I want you to set the table. Like, why should our listeners think of you as an expert? What's your background? How did you get into this role of VP and division manager?
Okay, so back before I think you guys were born, I was doing real estate.
This is audio for some people. You don't have to tell them.
That's right. So probably 35 years ago, I actually got my broker's license in downtown Boston. And but I'm from here, born and raised in Colorado.
I was 13, by the way, 35 years ago. Just saying.
So I've been a commercial broker, residential real estate broker. I've been a paralegal, a real estate paralegal, an appraiser, title rep, and pretty much anything that has to do with real estate, I've done it. So being a qualified intermediary is a combination of a lot of those things. I have to know how to read title. I've got to understand the real estate world. I've got to be able to understand commercial and residential, and act with people all the time. So it's a perfect job for me, and I just love it, for one. I've been doing this for over a decade. My company has been doing this since there have been qualified intermediaries, which is about 35 years. And it is a subsidiary steward title, and they've been around for about 124 years.
Oh.
So we've got
Steward,
a long background. Steward is a
before,
multinational, multi-billion-dollar, well-respected company, and we've been part of them for all these 35 years. And we're just a really good, solid company. We're one of the top companies in the nation. And one of the top companies in the state.
And how long have you been in this role, specifically for steward or for the asset preservation?
Oh, going on 12 years.
Okay.
So what would be, what's a typical client? So how do I know? Personally, I've never heard of a qualified intermediary, but that's the great thing about this podcast is Roy's always introducing things like, never heard of this before. But how would I know I need one? Like, what's the typical client look like?
Anybody that owns investment real estate.
Okay.
So that's anything that's not your primary home, that's not your second home, or you're not a fix and flipper. Anything else. So your piece of land, a single family rental, farm that you have somewhere, water rights, mineral rights, that cell tower you have in the backyard. Any of those things are actually investment real estate.
Okay.
And any of those things can be exchanged for something similar or something completely different, like what Roy sells.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. So it could be anyone. And I work with, I think this week I did a $70,000 lot and a $70 million multifamily. And so it runs a gamut everywhere in between.
Right. Well, and in Colorado, prices being what they are for real estate, I'm sure that there's a lot going on, especially our little part of the world where there's nothing to development and, people buying and selling all the time, it feels like. So
Yes. And the other factor is you want to have gain on the property.
Right.
Because that's what I'm helping you to defer into another property. So we all know that if there's gain on something, the IRS is going to want some taxes on it. But there's kind of a sweetheart deal, according to the people who are against keeping 1031 exchanges. They called it a sweetheart deal for just real estate investors. And I'm thinking, hallelujah, that's if we didn't have real estate investors, I mean, this country would never have grown to be what it is.
Well, it's an interesting concept too, because the largest asset, being a planner, I look at people's net worth all the time, and a lot of the assets that are largest assets are illiquid in the form of land and or homes, and is their biggest asset.
Yeah,
for a lot of folks. So to have that ability to not have to realize taxes and those kind of things are a pretty big deal for some folks.
Right. It was put into the code in 1921, so it's not a Johnny-come-lately. It's not a loophole. It was put in there because of mostly for agriculture and manufacturing, anything else where you had somebody who was particularly adept at what they did, and you've got a wheat farmer who's doing well and he wants to buy the cornfield next door, and if he had to sell his and pay the taxes, he'd never be able to get to the bigger, better farm. And so the IRS says, listen, as long as you're going to reinvest in yourself, in the country, in what you're doing, we're going to not recognize that gain. We're going to let you keep 100% of everything and buy that property. And so that's how it all started, and that's why it's been just something that's driven the economy for so long. Because it allows people to keep reinvesting in themselves, in their portfolio, in their factory, in their farms, their ranches.
So let's paint a picture.
Yeah.
Because I know that some folks it's kind of hard to understand this concept, right? So simplicity's sake, let's just say we have a rental home. Okay. You bought the rental home for $500,000.
Yeah.
You had an inheritance, let's say, from a family member that passed away. You buy this rental home. 10 years later, you're like, I don't really want this rental home anymore in this area. It doesn't make sense for us. I want to sell it. It's now worth $750,000. And if I sell it, I have a gain. I'm simplifying, but let's just simplify. $500,000 purchase. That's your cost basis.
Yeah.
It grows to $750,000. You now have a $250,000 gain. Right.
Which the IRS could see as income.
If I sell it, could see it as a gain, which could tax it. So it's technically not income.
Oh, that's right.
Let me correct you, Jeremy.
Yes, please do. There's a lot.
But the way it's taxed does depend on your income, so it plays into income, just to be clear. But if it's a capital gain in today's rules, right, it could be upwards of 20% depending on your income level. So you could pay $50,000 in taxes, capital gain tax, on that $250,000 of gain in that simple situation. Does that make sense? Did I miss anything there on that?
Well, only a few more levels of taxes. So remember that $250,000 gain has federal tax, which is depending on what your income, could be 20%, could be 15%. There's the net investment income tax, also known as the Obamacare tax, which is 3.8. When you have 200, if you're single, or 250, your threshold on your net your income. And there's state tax, which at the moment Colorado is one of the lower ones at 4.4, so you add that to it. And then you've had this property for 10 years. You've taken 5% depreciation every year. Multiply those together, you've got $50,000 of depreciation recapture. That's taxed at 25%. No matter what your income is, plus 4.4% state tax. So count on 30% on pretty much anything that you're looking at.
Wow. So it's a big chunk. So if I'm trying to realize a gain, then I'm like, oh, crud.
So you're paying, in that situation, $75,000.
Out of my $250,000.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
So
now, again, simplified.
Oh, yeah. We're very round numbers.
Yeah.
You get into depreciation and all that sort of stuff.
None of us are CPAs here.
Yeah.
So the beauty of being able to defer it is that $75,000, if you take it to your lender and get 75% loan to value, you can buy something a lot bigger, better, stronger, closer, more productive than what you had before.
Right.
So the beauty is taking that little bit of leverage that you would have paid the government and using it for reinvestment.
Yep.
Right.
And if you did that over and over and over, starting young, buying a single family, then going for the duplex and a fourplex and apartment building, and now you have a whole bunch of Starbucks all over the country. That's how you build, and you can, by being able to do this, it's it's often called an interest-free loan from the government, which it kind of is, because you get to use this money for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have we still have a step up in basis, which means that a lot of our clients are going to be building generational wealth. They're going to be building their portfolio, and when they pass, it's going to go to their heirs at a step up in basis.
Mm-hmm.
So of all those years of gains that they've deferred are going to go away, and the heirs are going to receive those properties at a step up. And again, it's been just a great way to build generational wealth for a long time.
And for our listeners to understand what a step up in basis is, the concept is simple: $500,000 purchase, $750,000. If I was alive and did that transaction, I have to pay tax on it. If I'm able to use this 1031 exchange process, I die, that gain that was built in that I didn't want to pay tax on gets stepped up so that it's like it was $750,000 to that inherited person.
Oh, okay.
Right, or entity. So that's how you kind of are able to pass it on generationally without having to pay tax on that.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, but I assume there are, obviously some pretty strict rules about then what you can do with that money, right? So if I got the single family, I've been renting it out for 10 years, and I said, hey, I want to step up to a duplex, or there's this fourplex down the road that I'm like, maybe I want to, do a little bit more of this. I'm going to sell that. I'm going to buy that. I'm sure there's some parameters around what you can do with those monies.
Well, for the whole process of doing a 1031 exchange, there are rules in place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray areas, but then there's some very, very solid rules, and that's the timing. And the timing is very tight, and they'd rather you pay the taxes, so they're not going to make it super easy.
Right.
But the ability to what you can buy is quite broad, and they're called like-kind exchanges, but like-kind doesn't mean what you think. It doesn't mean you sell a single-family residence and you have to buy a single-family residence. It means you could buy a farm or a ranch or a building or commercial or, again, mineral rights, water rights, easements. Any of those things are like-kind to each other. So that's what's kind of fascinating. And it's also, you can go anywhere in the country. So you can sell your property here in Johnstown and buy that place you've always wanted in Florida. Mm. And the caveat is it has to be an investment property. So you can't buy your primary home there in Florida, but you could buy an investment property, rent it for 2 years. That makes it an investment property. Now it's your primary. Now you can move into it, make it your second home. So it allows people to kind of plan for their future.
Hold up. You can do that? This is one of those things. This is a gray area, right?
Right.
So you did the 1031. You had it as a rental for 2 years. After 2 years, you could actually use it for personal use.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
This is
so
news
that's
to me,
a
Jeremy.
strategy.
This is why we have experts.
Yeah.
That's a strategy that we see all the time. So they're planning for your future. It's a great estate planning or family planning tool to say, okay, we've rented this. We've got a kiddie condo at CSU for a while. Let's say the kids are out of it. Now where do we want to go? Well, kids love to ski. Let's buy something in the ski area. We get to use it a couple of weeks a year. Mm-hmm. And then after 2 years, it's ours to use as a second home or move into it. So a lot of great strategies.
Can they move into it as a primary?
Yeah.
And then, but if they sell it, it still has the tax situations connected to it.
There are some rules with that. But let's say I sold a rental property here in Colorado and I want to move into Hilton Head. So I buy something in Hilton Head, exchange into it, rent it for 2 years. That qualifies it for the exchange because I kept it as a rental property. Now I move into it. Normally, every 2 years I get to use my primary home exclusion. That's single 250, married 500. But because I exchanged into it, the IRS set a little bit of different rules where you've got to hold it for 5 years. So now I lived there for 3 years, rented it for 2. In year 6, I could sell that property. And I get to use part of my primary home exclusion, but not all of it. If I hadn't exchanged into it, I could use my full 250. But because I exchanged into it and I lived there only 3 out of the 5 years, I get to use 3/5 of it. And the next year I get to use 4/6 of it. And the next year I get to use 5/7 of it. So the longer I live there, the more of my primary home exclusion I get to use. And the depreciation recapture is always there. So I might get mitigate my taxes quite a bit with my primary home exclusion, but I still will have that depreciation recapture for those 2 years that I rented it.
Right. That makes sense. So, I mean, this is, but part of the reason why there are experts like you, right? I mean, so I think for people at home, if you're not completely following this, and I must confess I'm not completely following it, but what it says is like, oh, there are ways of mitigating, the potential tax penalties around doing some of these things if you want to get into this, and this is why people like yourself exist, is to help us kind of untangle, that mess a little bit and make sure we're not, like I said, we've said a lot on the show. I've said a lot. I don't mind paying my fair share, but I don't want to pay more than it.
Well, you want to follow the
exactly.
rules that exist to be able to take advantage of what exists, right?
Right.
That's the whole point.
And encouraging people, and I think we use money and we use the tax code to encourage people to do the things we want them to do. I mean, that's why there's a mortgage, exclusion, because we want people to own homes, right? And so you want people who invest in property to actually invest in that property, and if they grow and mature and get the field next to you and plant it, or get that bigger apartment building if you're successful at it. Like, why would we not encourage this? But figuring out how to navigate all of that is maybe why we have folks
maybe
like
that's
Erin.
Definitely why we
have folks like Erin.
It isn't easy, but it is so. It can be challenging, especially when you're going to the really complex commercial transactions and things like that. But some of the myths around it are that it is only for the rich, and it isn't. I mean, I do a 1031 exchanges for little farms in Oklahoma, or something that someone inherited, as you said, and they've had it for years, or just small rental houses, 100,000, 50,000, and you do it because even a little bit of gain could throw somebody's income off. You said it's not exactly income, but you have a big gain on something, all of a sudden, your Medicare and everything else is thrown off. So there's a lot of reasons why it's important, even at the lower level. If you have a $100,000 property, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do a 1031 exchange; it's not worth it. But you might have had it for a long time and have a very low basis, and you've got 90,000 of gain. That's going to throw your whole world around. And you can still pull money out and put it in the bank. You're just going to pay taxes on it. So it's versatile in where you can do a full exchange, defer everything. You can do a partial exchange, put some money in the bank, defer the rest of it.
Okay, I was wondering about that, actually.
Yeah. It's just whatever money you walk away with, you have to pay taxes on.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of options. And we should talk a little bit about Roy has options as well, because you don't have to go into, if you have 20 or you've got 20 rental properties and you are tired of dealing with all those, and you've built up a nice little portfolio, you can exchange them into something easy to manage, like a triple net, or into a Delaware statutory trust, which is a securitized investment.
What's a triple net? Just remember, our listeners don't know what that means. So
Triple net would be, I'm like, say with Starbucks, we're going by buying a property where we have it doesn't have to be, but usually an institutional tenant, and they are handling, a triple net means that they are handling all of the expenses. So except for maybe a new parking lot or a new roof, they handle the insurance, everything else, maintenance. And so
it's the best kind of lease.
The renters,
yes,
handle.
The renters handle everything. So to the landlord, they're very easy to deal with.
Okay,
because they don't have to do anything; they just take the money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So mailbox money, the passive investments, the securitized investments, those are what we call mailbox money. You don't have to do anything. You don't get to do anything. But backing up on the exchange, it's very, there's a lot of options. It's very versatile, but there are some guidelines. One of them is you have to set up the exchange before you close on any property. So If you're calling me after you've walked away from the closing, it's too late to do an exchange.
Oh, okay.
The qualified intermediary, what I do, I've got to get in the middle of the transaction so that I take away the receipt of those funds from the seller. So one of the downsides of a 1031 exchange is you just sold something, you made all this money, and you don't get to touch that money, right? It's got to go to me. I've got to hold it, and then it's got to be reinvested into more real estate or investment property.
So those funds never even hit my bank account if I'm the owner.
Better not.
Okay.
That's what creates the taxation.
Okay.
So you have to have the intermediary for that purpose alone.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get in the middle, sign on to the contract, hold those funds, sign on to the purchase contract, spend those funds.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is just to do all the paperwork to make sure that 1031 exchange is done correctly, and that all the rules are followed, and that money's safe between the sale and the purchase of what they. And then the IRS put some very tight guidelines on the timing.
Mm-hmm.
From the day you close, so that's day 0, you have 45 calendar days to let us, the QI, who's holding your funds, know what you want to buy. And you don't get to give me the Johnstown phone book or MLS and say, I want all these. You get to identify either 3 properties of any value, or you're capped at the number. So not capped at the value, just the number. So if I sell my property for $750, I get to pull out commissions, title fees. So let's call it $700. That's how much I have to go reinvest. I've got $700,000 property, and I need to go out and buy another $700,000 property or more for full tax deferral.
Okay.
So, and I've got 45 days to go out and find those properties, and then get the list of them to the qualified intermediary. So by midnight of the 45th day, I need to know what I'm buying.
Okay.
I don't have to be under contract, but I should be, because this is my only list. Come day 46, if I found the perfect property, it's too late. I can only choose from what I put on my list. So I can have one that I love, one that I like, one is a backup. Or I can buy 3, or can buy whatever. If I'm going to take my 700 and I'm going to go buy graveyard sites somewhere at 30,000 a crack, I'm going to need a lot of them. So if I'm going to take that money and diversify in smaller properties, which I can certainly do, I'm going to need more identification. So I can identify as many as I need to, but instead of being capped at the number, the next rule caps me at the value. So I can identify as many properties I want to, but I can't go over twice what I sold my property for.
Okay.
Okay? So was that 1.5? I can identify 1.5 of as many as I want. Now, if I blow both of those, I go over 4 and I go over 1.5, I fall into this rare but kind of deadly category that says that I have to, if I give the QI a list of 20 properties, I have to buy 95% of the value of all of those. I have to complete the sale or the purchase of those within 180 days. And if I don't, the whole exchange falls apart.
And then you're on the hook for the taxes.
Exactly.
Got it.
So
that's the carrot, or that's the stick.
The
stick
it doesn't
is,
happen often.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people are going to identify, and that 45 days is
Sure.
really crucial.
And let's be honest, what I've seen with my clients that have done it, they know what they're going to buy before they do the first sale.
Well, right. You probably picked out the thing you're going to buy before you
that would be ideal.
Yeah. And then you're selling something to...
Because otherwise you're kind of just like, if I don't know, it's, well, okay, I've got 45 days, and what if I don't find it?
Well, what's your motivation then to sell what you already have, unless you just
exactly.
want out of it for some reason?
Yep.
I hear.
And that's a good question. The motivation to sell would be something you've had for a long time and you're fully depreciated, so you're not getting that tax benefit as much anymore. Or something that is, more of a hindrance than a pleasure now, because it's getting so old that it's a lot of maintenance and maybe you're getting older and it would be better off in the hands of somebody young and vivacious who likes fixing roofs and everything. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're in an area, maybe you've moved and it's hard to pack up those properties, so you can exchange the properties that you had in Texas and move them all here to Colorado. So there's a lot of motivation for why you would sell and why you would use an exchange. And then, there's just so many opportunities. I've one woman who every time she sells a property, she buys something for a grandchild to rent out from her, which is perfectly legal to do. And then she has it structured so they will inherit when she passes at a step up in basis. So she's taking care of her family each time she does an exchange or each time she sells a property.
That's pretty brilliant. Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. So so I wanted to kind of make sure I understand what you just said there. You said a lot. If there's someone who has a property, they want to sell it at 1031, the total value is $200,000. We won't get into the weeds of the math, but beyond that, but $200,000 is that sale price. They would have to only go into a property that's up to $400,000.
Only if they're going to identify multiple properties.
Okay.
Typically, if they're most people are just going to do 1, 2, or 3.
So
properties.
if they went from a $200,000, because actually the situation where they did the 1031, they wanted to go into a bigger property. That 1031 really just covered the down payment.
Yes.
Is really what it did.
Oh, okay.
And then they were to get the loan on the rest of it, right?
Right.
So, but it was $1 million. So,
yes.
So you're looking at, they would be able to 1031 that 200 and go into that $1 million property. But if it was multiple properties, more than one, so it's not just like 2, it's like more than 1 or more than 3.
3 is your cap for as high as you want to go.
Okay.
So if I'm selling for 200 and I want to buy for $1 million or $2 million or $8 million or 500, it doesn't matter, but I can only identify 3 properties.
Up to 3. Beyond that, then you're kind of capped at that double valuation number. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, that does. Okay.
This is
and that's why these deals will get complicated sometimes because you may saying, I've got this little rental house, I'm going to clear, $200,000 out of it, and I want to buy something a lot bigger. I'm like, but you're going to need a loan for the rest. So you're going to this deal is going to have some of my own money, but it's not. That's maybe my savings, and then this pot over here that's coming from this rental property I'm selling, and then the rest of it's coming from this bank loan. I mean, this is where you're gonna exercise somebody at the title company and all these other places to get it all figured out, and then of course having you in the mix to then make sure you're playing by all the rules.
That's right, and that is my job as well, to make sure that everybody knows those rules. Well, they play by them, up to them, but I make sure they know them.
That makes sense. Okay.
And there's a few other rules as far as we want to make sure that the tax-paying entity stays the same. So that can get awfully complicated when you've got LLCs and trusts and corporations.
So you can't change the owner.
You have to correct. You want to make sure the tax-paying entity, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner, because you could have Roy LLC.
Well, what I mean by that is if it's owned by a trust, if it's owned by an LLC, if it's owned by an individual, you got to keep that the same? That's what you're saying?
The ownership could be different than the tax-paying entity.
Okay.
So if I go to Weld County and assessors and I see that you own something under Roy LLC, that isn't enough for me to set up the exchange, because I don't know enough about that LLC. It could be just you, and in which case,
multiple members or something like that.
It could be multiple members. If it's multiple members, then Roy LLC, I must set up the exchange in that name. If it's just you, I can set up in your name or any other single member LLC.
That makes sense. I'm with you.
If it's a trust, I have to find out if it's a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. Corporations and partnerships are pretty easy. So we've got to keep the same horse that starts a race. We got to make sure it finishes, because otherwise
you could kind of transfer title of something, through that process if you did it wrong, essentially.
Well, either that or the one who didn't do it didn't get that benefit of buying something, and they're like, wait, but you didn't do an exchange.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other rules. So, and then the rule for full tax deferral, again, that everyone gets wrong, is that you've got to use all the cash you walk away with and then get a loan or more cash for the remainder. So if I sell for $750, take out my closing costs at $700, and I've got a $300,000 mortgage, I only have cash of $400. And people think, okay, I just take my $400, put it somewhere, I'm good. But they forget that you have to make up that debt too. But you don't have to go out and get a mortgage. That's a myth. You have to go out and replace that debt with either mortgage or with cash, or it's open to taxes. So
at the end of the sale, that sale price has to be what is put into the other. It's not what you walk away with.
Correct.
Debt free.
Correct.
So that 700 number is because they allow you to take out the cost of the transaction, because that was for that transaction, but nothing beyond that. So then you got to take that full 700 and put it into the next thing, at least 100% or more in regards to that. Okay.
Right. And the cash needs, because I talked with someone yesterday, and they just wanted to get a higher mortgage. Or back a few years ago when mortgage rates were very low, they're like, why wouldn't you put money in your pocket and just get a bigger mortgage? Well, because if you put money in your pocket after an exchange,
right,
that's all taxable.
Right.
So anybody who
well,
walks...
you can. You're just going to pay taxes.
You're just going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
So then if I have a business owner, I'm running scenarios by you right now.
Okay.
If you haven't noticed, they have a business building and it's in Colorado currently. So it doesn't matter if they 1031 into a different property, some in a different state, right? You can go any state.
Anywhere, including the U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. But you cannot go outside the United States. But yes, you can go from any corner.
Puerto Rico?
I don't know why. One of these
Probably
days I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But so
it's government.
U.S.
It's weird.
Virgin Islands, the Mariana
Guam.
Islands, Guam. You can go in and out of Guam.
There you go.
So
then they could sell their business building that was for business commercial purposes and then buy that second home in
second homes.
Well, it's going to be a second home, but they're going to do the process that you just explained, right?
They're going to buy an investment property.
Investment property
in a couple of years
for
will
2
become,
years, and then after that second year, they can move into it as a second home.
Correct.
Or even their primary if they wanted to, right, at that time.
Correct.
Without breaking the rules.
Correct.
And that could set them up for retirement in a way that they don't have to pay all that depreciation recapture that they did on that commercial building over 30 years.
Right. If they leave their
probably
fleet
the bigger
first,
deal,
it's
but-
just going to go to their heirs at a step-up in basis.
Yeah.
If they sell it and put money in their pocket, then all those taxes that they've deferred, they'll owe.
Yeah.
So that's the other downside on an exchange is that when you exchange, you are
You're
lowering
stuck.
your basis. And by the time you're on your third exchange, you have a whole lot of gain. So you're either going to put it into the best, retirement home and live out your days and leave it to your heirs, or go into Delaware statutory trusts, some other type of investment,
Right.
and just have a nice passive income for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
There are worse things.
So let's talk about that a little bit because the DST for short, Delaware Statutory Trust, right? That is a
Sure.
That is
I totally know what that is.
that is a trust that's been created. It's
in Delaware.
out of Delaware. Yep.
Figured that part.
And the rules are allowing it to receive 1031 property, and it can be a diversified bucket. So let's say that it's $1 billion. Well, there's
Sure.
$1 billion worth of real estate in there, and you just add yours to it. But that trust has rules it has to follow, and income it has to pay out. And then as the person who owned a property previously was an income property, you're still getting income from that money, but you don't have to manage a property any longer.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
And as long as they don't sell their shares of that, they don't pay a capital gain. But if they sell their shares, just like if they sell a 1031 property without doing the 1031, they pay their capital gains.
Okay.
So it could have a step up in basis upon their death for their heirs as well.
Okay.
But that's something that someone like me can put them into.
Right.
Right. We can identify one and then.
Well, it goes back to the whole team approach thing, right? It's why,
Why you have me. It's really why people have a financial planner, because I'm the quarterback, right? But I'm not the expert in everything.
Right.
That's why we have an Erin. Right.
Right.
That's why we have all our guests that we have.
Right.
I don't know all of the information on everything. So we have to go to experts in those fields to do it properly.
Yeah. Well, these are the questions you should ask. If you live somewhere or you're, not in a place where you can just, knock on Roy's door, which is the right answer most of the time, is you just ask questions like, have you dealt with, commercial property? And if you dealt with these things before, or do you have someone you can bring in that can do that?
Yeah. And the Delaware Statutory Trust could be a podcast on its own, by the way.
Sounds like it.
But
Or many of them.
I mean, come on, the exciting state of Delaware. Like,
it all starts, though, with the 1031 concept.
yeah.
And there's other code as well that play into that, IRS codes.
Oh, 721.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you said this has been around for, over 100 years in the tax code and everything, I'm like, oh, okay, then it's got some interesting nuances at that place. Because I'm sure we've, tweaked it along the way as we are wont to do around these things, and it becomes a bit of a mess.
It's one of those things, too, that it's been in place so long that if you actually change that rule, you're messing with a lot of people.
Well, no, there's whole industries and business models based on it at this point.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Big
So
industries. It was changed when Trump came in the first time. So when the Tax Act and Job Bill came in, there was one fairly major change to it, and the word real was put in front of the properties, so exchange of real properties. And they actually took away the ability to exchange personal property. I don't know if you remember that, but so your fleets of trucks, your helicopters, jewelry collections, art collections, sports teams.
Those are personal, not real.
All of those were exchanged up until
Previously,
2018.
okay.
Yeah.
So cattle?
Cattle, absolutely.
Oh, man, they really took
And so
on that.
it took oil industry, all the big industries that have huge equipment, those took a big digger. The sports teams, I didn't realize that they could actually were exchanging contracts of one multi-million-dollar contract for another. So they were exchanging those. So that went away. We still have, so now we just have real property, but in that real property heading, we have oil rights, mineral rights, conservation easements, cell towers, communication easements. So all these things that you have in this area that you don't think about are could be exchangeable. If you have the mineral rights to your land, you don't have to sell your land. You can exchange those mineral rights.
Right.
Again, if you've got a cell tower on your ranch, you can exchange just that easement that the cell tower has, basically the leases on it, and buy an apartment building. I have somebody in Silt who had a ranch with a creek, and in the creek was a fish, and somebody wanted to protect that fish, so they gave him a conservation easement to not hurt the fish. And that conservation easement was enough to exchange for a multifamily. So
wow.
I say that little fish makes some money every day.
There you go.
So real property. So a business, so there's like blue sky businesses, right? So they don't actually have a product in regards to like they make, like it's an app-based business, let's say, right? So if you sell a blue sky business that doesn't have real property, is there a difference between is it a business that's not personal because it's just a business, or?
Well, there's no exchange involved. There might be some ways of deferring gain on those, but
if I'm selling a business building, that's real property.
Correct.
If I'm selling the business operations, is that not real property?
Correct. It is not real property. It used to be. So back in the day, you could do an exchange on your building, and you could do exchange on your equipment. And now you can no longer do that. So now the building, the bricks and mortar, is exchangeable.
Okay. So this is where maybe some of the criticism comes in, where we're kind of favoring one thing versus another. You know, if you're a business that's heavily invested in real property, you know, you're an apartment company or whatever, then this is really advantageous. If you're not, if you're a company that's got a lot of value, but it's not in like real property kind of thing, then this is not going to help you.
Right. If you're leasing your property, somebody had a franchise of one of the cookie franchises, and they had done really well, and they were selling them, but they were selling the franchise, and I'm like, I cannot. There's nothing to exchange. There may be other parts of the code that
they should
could help
really
you.
look at that to work with that.
Yeah,
because business is a big deal, right?
An opportunity zone fund would have worked for them.
But I think there's a guy in our church who's got the Mosquito Joe franchise, and I'm sure most of the assets are the trucks and the business contracts and stuff. So if they ever wanted to sell that, that's what somebody would be buying, not dirt,
not bricks and mortar,
not bricks
land,
and mortar, not dirt. So he would need that. This wouldn't. You would, even if you wanted to sell that franchise, so we could buy another one.
Right. So the exchange would not be the vehicle for that, but it is for so many other things, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. And if you think how important it has been over the last 100 years, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah, agree. Yeah. Well, it's been really interesting. All right.
Wow, there's a lot there.
Did you guys learn some things?
Yeah, I always learn stuff. My job is to sit here and learn things.
So, question for you, because we kind of, we talk about these things, but it's like, okay, so we just talked about real estate transaction costs and whatnot, closing and all that stuff. But how do you get compensated doing this transaction? Like, how does that work? How does the person that engages you pay you?
Well, to me, I think it's amazingly reasonable, considering that on a daily basis, I'm saving people tens of thousands up to millions. And again, in my world, I don't not sleep at night because I'm worried about the government not making enough tax money. Because if people are doing this right, they are investing into something that is making them more income, which is taxed at a higher rate, and they're paying more. So in the end, it's all a win-win. But we are a flat fee. So if you are selling a $700,000 property, or I did one for several hundred million, and my fee is $1,250, and it includes the sale of the property and up to 3 new properties. So a lot of times people are going to sell that
$1,250 total.
And
that's a steal.
I just did one for
that is not the number I was expecting.
I was totally expecting it to be like a percentage of the property sale. And
no, it's not that. And yeah, if somebody did a $30 million one and they said, so how much is your fee? I said, $1,250. Like, really? I said, yeah. And you can buy up to 3 properties with that. So, and if you're going to buy 4 properties, we're going to charge you an extra $200. So it's nothing.
Oh my gosh. I'm sticking to 3.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. So what you said, you could do a small transaction too, because that's affordable.
It's affordable.
Right. Yeah.
But even on a $100,000 transaction, the tax savings alone, I mean, are going to be...
It's $30,000.
It's way more than $1,250.
I mean, you're just like 20 times or 10 times. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay, so they pay that out of pocket to you. It's not part of the assets going through.
Well, that's the thing. I get. How do we pay you? Do we owe you a check? And I said, I'm holding your funds, right? So they can't touch their money, but we can. So we have the right to hold their funds. We can put them in a nice safe account. But I'm going to take my $1,250 out of those funds.
Got it. So it comes from the proceeds, so they don't have to
So we
stroke a
never
check.
not get paid. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's it. So we're going to we're going to bring in all those funds and we're going to send out minus $1,250.
Okay.
Which is a write-off, of course, just like real estate commissions and title fees against what they'd have to pay taxes on. So
you're probably one of the smaller fees in that list of fees.
we are.
Having just purchased a normal home, I can tell you, like,
Well, I've talked to other institutions, and it was not that. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So that's really wonderful. You guys are willing to do that at such an affordable rate.
That's our fee. Yep.
And where do you guys work? Like, first off, where does somebody find you if they're interested? Website, phone number.
Can I do that right here?
You can do whatever you want as long as you want it out there. We have tons of listeners.
Oh, yeah.
So you can call me direct, which is 720-648-3512. The company is Asset Preservation. We are one of the top national companies, again, owned by Stewart Title. So apiexchange.com, you'll find a bunch of information. We are national, so I do exchanges from anywhere to anywhere, as long as it's in the country.
Except Puerto Rico.
Except Puerto Rico.
Except Puerto Rico. But we can also do exchanges outside. We do, you can sell your property in Brazil and buy something in Portugal. You just can't come in and out of the United States.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So domestic for domestic, foreign for foreign.
Really?
Really?
That's quite interesting. I didn't know
There
that.
you go.
And then just a couple of things and reminders that there are 4 levels of taxes that you'd have to pay that is deferred: the state, the federal, the net investment income tax, or Medicare surtax, and the depreciation recapture.
Yep.
And if you're an out-of-state seller, you don't have to pay that 2% withholding because you're not paying the taxes. And if you're an out-of-country, then you've got this FERP withholding, and you can often waive that as well. So there's really 6 levels, and if you think about that, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, how many transactions do you do like a year?
Me myself, maybe 400.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Just mine. I mean, so I cover Colorado, Wyoming, and whatever else I can.
So we were lucky to get this hour of your day here.
Yeah, I know.
She's got
There's 2 things she's not closing right now.
Like, I got to get to my next appointment.
There you go.
I worked all the way up.
But that also, and I think one of the things that I love this podcast for is we can explain these stuff to people. With those kind of numbers, this is not an exotic thing. This is not something just for your big-time real estate developers or whatever. If you've got that family piece of inherited property, if you've got that little, farm piece, or that, the grandma's old house that you've been using as a rental, for the last 10 years, whatever it is. I mean, these are not exotic things for exotic people. These affect everyday people with,
Absolutely.
basic investments in real property.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't charge a consultation fee, so you just call me, and if it doesn't work for you, great.
Right.
It's no problem. If an exchange isn't right for everyone, there might not be enough gain. You might not want to reinvest everything. You might not have rented it properly or something, or treat it as an investment property. So that's my job, is to kind of ferret all that out and take your phone call, and I'm not alone. As soon as that goes through me and I answer all the questions, I have teams on the East Coast, teams on the West Coast, and they take it and handle all the paperwork and the monies. I've got a banking department, a legal department, a commercial department. So it isn't just me, which is nice to know when I'm holding money, and we've got Stewart Title behind us, which makes us very strong.
Nice. All right.
Well, I'm my head's spinning right now. I can think of so many questions and scenarios for you. But is there anything else that you think around that 1031 exchange wrapper that you want our audience to know?
Well, if you have an investment property, if you are considering selling, the time to call me is sooner than later, because there may be things that we can work out. It may take a month or two if we have to change anything in the vesting side. So if you just have a thought, I always ask people, are you under contract? Are you musing about it? If you're just thinking about selling something that's investment property and if you've got gain or not, then that's when you want to give me a call.
Before the contract is signed.
Yeah. I mean, at the contract, when the contract is signed, that's when I definitely want to be called so I can get the paperwork started.
Yeah.
Got it.
But before that, when you're thinking about it, that's when we have to see, do we need to change from the partnership into individual ownership?
There's some due diligence that has to be done on your
We
end.
may need to do some due diligence.
That makes sense.
Well, and it may open up possibilities that people don't know.
Exactly.
Like, I'm thinking about selling this thing, especially as my first property. That you've already laid out a bunch of scenarios. I'm like, I wouldn't have known you could do that. I would have known you could do that. So maybe a conversation too. It's like,
well, I learned something. I didn't know about the primary residence thing. That's quite interesting. That might, change the game for some folks.
The last thing is COVID brought us the Airbnb, and so now we have people who have primary homes and investment properties all within. They've got their ADU, they've got their house over the garage, they've got their rental now in the basement. And all those are kind of a new world of being able to do 1031 exchanges, of being able to use not only your primary home exclusion, but also the 1031 exchange for that ADU, that investment portion. And again, on ranches and farms, you get to use both of them.
Yeah.
You get a primary home on the homestead, 1031 on the rest of it.
On the rest of it, yeah.
So.
Cool. All right.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Erin. This has been really great.
Yeah, super.
When we get into these more esoteric topics, I do kind of wonder when I walk in, I'm like, I wonder how this is going to go. But there's always something.
He always wonders, but he just doesn't know. Just doesn't know.
I just don't know. But there's always something really fascinating, and it's always far more like, oh, no, this is actually a real thing that real people are going to run into.
Well, and this is a real value add, because I know for people this will create a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Just basic clarity, and save you time from just doing one-off phone calls, right?
Oh,
because in reality, you can always send this to your people and be like, "Hey, here's the basics of a 1031. Give it a listen and then call me."
There you go.
Right? If you don't, if it didn't answer your questions, right? Call me.
Absolutely.
Or they're just more confused than ever, and then you could have a longer conversation.
And a pitch for Roy, because what you can do quarterbacking people is brilliant, because a lot of times they just.
Well, it's all about planning, and you always want to try and I always want to try flexibility is always key, but also let's play within the rules, and we got to know the rules fully to be able to get that. So we have to take into consideration whatever it is, and if it's land or real property, there's rules that we can use to our advantage, and we need to know that. And I can at least educate. I don't tell them to do it or not do it, but here's the information.
Right.
You make the decision if you think it's best for you or not. Is there ever a situation where you're like, yeah, you really shouldn't be doing a 1031 right now?
Oh, yes.
Like, what would be an example of something like that?
Okay, the other day we figured out the numbers, and I'm very basic. I'm not an accountant. I cannot give tax or legal advice. But just in the basics, running of the numbers, I'm like, you actually have a loss on this property. And they're like, well, yes, but I put money and I get this back. And I was like, yeah, but that's different. Overall, you have a loss on this property. You don't want to do an exchange when you have a loss
Yeah, why would you?
Because you want to recognize that loss.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad day today, but it might be wonderful when you've got a gain in a year from now.
Right.
So, and a lot of times people don't want to, it's a hardship for them to buy something else. They can't reinvest. They need that cash. They need it.
Yeah.
And it makes more sense for them to pay that taxes and put it in the bank and have it for them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of scenarios that an exchange isn't the best option. If you don't want to buy more, if you can't or don't want to be reinvesting, it's not for you. Or if you plan on reinvesting and selling soon, it's probably not for you. It is for somebody who is looking long term, who is, wants to continue to reinvest into investment property. If that isn't your jam, it's not for you.
And as a planning piece here, Jeremy, this is really important is, let's just say that your assets are tied up into property like this. Because I have actually run across a lot of people like, well, I just do real estate and that's it.
Right.
Which is good and bad. It does create cash flow, being rental income of some sort. But in a worst case scenario, which typically would be a health event,
right,
and they need money and they don't have any other liquid assets,
right,
and they're doing 1031 exchanges, they might be forced to sell something and realize the gains.
Oh, okay.
Right. So this isn't like a perfect situation in all scenarios. It's just depends. So if you're going to go down this route, I'm saying this so that you might want to think about playing like, maybe I need to buy a long-term care policy to help me with cash flow in a health event situation. Right. So I don't have to sell this property that I deferred the taxes on, because that could be a really bad situation. And when you get into, we call it the death spiral, where you have to start selling stuff off and paying tax. It just, because the government takes a huge chunk, right?
Yeah.
And you have this death spiral going on. So you have to think about the planning aspect. It's not just as simple as like, well, I'm not paying taxes, so it's good. No, not necessarily. You could have a situation that could just blow you up, and you're not even thinking about it.
And you're deferring taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're deferring them. You just haven't paid them yet. You could. Right. You might not if you pass away and it passes on to the next generation, but you might too.
And shout out to our long-term care insurance episode.
Yeah, we have a long-term care insurance episode.
We got quite a
library. All this
library.
stuff here.
Yeah, we're into the 30s of episodes, so we're doing good. So
that is wonderful.
Well, I do appreciate you, Erin. I do appreciate your time and taking
Thank
your time
you,
out of a
gentlemen.
busy day and everything, and educating us on this important topic. Like always, if you have questions or topic ideas for us, feel free to reach out. You can put a comment in the video if you're watching on YouTube or wherever else like that. And of course, like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you know that guy down the street or your cousin who's got on that in real property investment, maybe send him this episode and let him get a little educated.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Erin. Appreciate you. Thank you, Roy.
You're welcome.
Yep. Until next time.
Absolutely. Everybody, have a great day.
Thank you. Got to head back to Big City.
CWA is a Securities and Exchange Registered Investment Advisor. No content contained herein should be construed as an offer for investment advice or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of low loss, including loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, or legal professional before implementing any strategy presented here. Data presented here are obtained from believed reliable sources but cannot be guaranteed as to completeness or accuracy.